Hi everybody, welcome back to my modeling channel. So today we're going to do a Messerschmitt 110 on the scale 172 from the manufacturer Revell. So let's open the box and see what do we have inside. So initially we are going to find the instruction sheet. Instruction sheet, as you can see, is pretty straightforward with the assembly of the aircraft itself, and it's in two parts. And then once we finish, you can see that you have the painting livery of the aircraft itself. Pretty straightforward. Then we're gonna go now to the decal sheet. The decal sheet has been pretty beat up through all the relocation. So I decided anyway to not use that decal sheet, and I will paint basically Swiss colors on that aircraft. It was an aircraft who basically surrendered to the Swiss authorities. So we're going to do this one. So now let's open the kit and see the kit itself. So it seems to be pretty basic, not a lot of details, but we're going to work through that later on. So, as we can see on the first screws, we have the wing. The wings are in three parts. So the lower part is in one block, plus the two engines are together. The panel lines are outside, so we're gonna have to rescribe them most probably. And a little bit of riveting as well, I can imagine. But that's nothing too difficult that we couldn't handle. Now we have the double tail, and the vertical fin are actually on a pretty good shape. I'll have to do some work. As you can see, there has been a lot of extra plastic on the horizontal stabilizer, a little bit of work, but nothing too difficult. So we have also the propellers, the gear doors, and the exhaust on that aircraft. So that's the second sprue, and the last one is containing the fuselage, one bomb, and the undercarriage. Pilot, probably a navigator, or a gunner on the rear. So, and we have of course the two handgun holes for the front of the nose of the aircraft, and the clear part which is located. So it's a very actually I have to say it's quite basic, but nothing too difficult that we shouldn't be able to handle. So for that kit, I also ordered some photo etch part from Edouard, and they are normally made for another brand. They are made for the Italian brand, but most probably I will be able to add some more details to that aircraft, and we're going to rework, of course, all the cockpit itself. So enough of talking, and let's start building that Messerschmitt 110. So we're going to start that model by preparing the fuselage. So I will adjust all the parts of that fuselage together, and the kit didn't provide any cockpit. So what I had to do, I had to scratch build the whole cockpit myself. So I took some measurements using some cardboard, and then I cut it to the proper measurements on a plastic board. So for that, of course, I used some scissors and measurements, and I realized that it was a little bit too big, so I drew parallel lines and to recut it and readjust it at the proper dimension. After that, basically using a plastic board and some photo etch part that I had for the Bf110, I scratch built the whole cockpit of that Messerschmitt 110. So as the glue is drying on the cockpit, it's time to assemble the horizontal stabilizer. So for this I realized that I had a lot of adjustment to do on the part itself, as there was a lot of plastic remains. So for that I use a scalpel blade to try to even up the thickness of that plastic, and then some sandpapers. And of course after that I came back to my scratch build cockpit and continue to build it up. And once everything will be finished, I will be in the position to start painting and adding all the quadrant on that aircraft. So now that our cockpit has been built, it's time to paint the interior of that aircraft. So for these I use a mix of matte black and light gray to get a pretty dark gray color to have that we call anthracite, and that was a matte color. And of course after that I start to paint some details on the cockpit. So at the moment I'm painting the seatbelt harness. And for these I'm using a gray, yellow-green color. Of course after that I'll have to paint the seatbelt and the buckle, and for that I will use some metallic paint. But the technique I will use for this and to show all the quadrant will be called a dry wash. It's basically you using some paint and you clean the brush on a cloth or a tissue to have just a little bit of paint remaining, and with this you are able to make some, you use a little bit of that paint remaining to make some more details on that cockpit or some other part of the aircraft. Of course after that I had some, I was able to paint the switches and some quadrant and some needles in that cockpit. So now the cockpit has been finished, so it's time to fill all the gaps on that fuselage and the wings with some Tamiya putty. And for this I'm using this gray epoxy putty. After that, of course, when it will be dry, it's time to sand it down, and that's normally a quite time-consuming period of that build. So once I finish to sand down all the wings, I'm gonna have to try to rescribe some panels and some of the panel lines. So for that I use some regular Tamiya tapes, and I use some razor blade saw, and later on to rescribe those panels. And after that, when I finish, I use another rescribing tool that I have to use carefully, and then to remove the plastic and rescribe the panel lines. So I did that on all the wings and the fuselage, as you can see at the moment. now that our build is finished, it's time to go to the paint shop. So for these, initially I have to paint some yellow band and the after part of the fin with a yellow color. So I use a standard yellow from Tamiya for this one, and I also add some yellow on the lower parts of the wings, on the outside. So the underbelly of most of the Luftwaffe aircraft were also made with another very light blue color. So for this I use some Tamiya paint, and of course what I did was a very big mix of white. I use a matte white with a very light blue color, and for this I painted all over the underbelly of the aircraft, and of course on the gear door. Shortly after that, of course, I had to paint the inside of those gear doors, and for these I use that green color that we normally have on the green aircraft. So after that, I cover the aircraft with a coat of grey mixed with a little bit of a green to have that proper Luftwaffe green color. So once done, I had to add some more mask, and after that I was able to paint the olive color on those parts of the wings. So that was the upper part, and of course after that there is a little bit of a special camouflage that you have on the Luftwaffe aircraft, so where you have to use a kind of dégradé and some different type of spot of colors. So we are now entering the final phase of our build. So basically it's going to be time to add the decal on that Messerschmitt 110. So for that I used just the regular decal that were provided in the kit, as I didn't have any special decals or anything coming from a special livery or another pilot. So the standard Revell decals, and I have to say they were soft enough. The quality was pretty good, even if they've been in the box for quite a long time, and they were able to stick correctly to the kit itself. I didn't even need any of these softeners. So just a standard decal with regular water, and everything went correctly. So this is the final result of that Messerschmitt 110. I hope you enjoyed that build with me. If you did so, please give me a thumbs up, or you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will see you soon for another video. Thank you for watching.